Hello, listeners and watchers. This is our first Zoom room dream stream podcast. So I think it's going to be great. And I'm here with my friend Brandon, whom I'm not going to introduce until one moment. I want to do a little welcome to Dream Stream. I'm the host, Yiskah Koock. And I have a little continuity from episode 41. And we were talking all about transformation. And I shared a poem called Just Caterpillar, but I forgot a line in it. So I just wanted to share that again. So episode 40 was really about the fear and disbelief about this pandemic. And episode 41 was really about dreaming a new dream for our world, so we don't have to live in fear, just all about transformation. So I'll share that poem and then we'll get talking. So it's called Just Caterpillar. Forget about the one-day transformation, the ability for emergence in flight, the nectar drinking, egg laying, flutter breezing freedom. You in all your fuzzy potential with nowhere to go, crunching leaves and crawling belly down, are just caterpillar. So I have felt that, collectively we were kind of not yet transformed. I'm looking at the poem collectively, but now I would say we're in our cocoon. We have wound our cocoon. So we're no longer caterpillar. Now we have wound our cocoon. We're all staying home in our homes. And I think that's where we're at. So welcome, Brendan Merritt.
Good morning.
My dream brother. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yes. So how are you guys holding up?
We're doing okay. I'm actually still at work. I'm considered an essential employee as I do technical support for a medical office. So it's been a little interesting. The shortage of protective gear initially was definitely affecting us. And, the number of patients coming into the office has shrunk to almost nothing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because people are afraid to come in and get exposed.
Yes.
We haven't had a large number of cases come through, but I do know that I recently saw a New York Times article that was an interview with somebody who had been very likely at our Rhinebeck offices, who was, then pretty much sent to the hospital.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, it's out there and it's active. People are, cutting down on their normal like checkups and well care visits and things like that.
Yeah.
The ophthalmology department where I work has been like almost like ghost town because that population is largely in the high risk category. Because they're all older people. A lot of them have underlying health conditions, which is why they have eye issues.
Yes.
I myself am technically high risk, being a diabetic. So
I know, Brandon. I was thinking about that.
So I've been doing some work from home and, where I can. And then when I have to go in, I'm going in and wearing, surgical mask and, the blue gloves.
Good.
And I don't, I try not to go into the clinical areas unless I really have to. And disinfecting everything constantly. So it's a whole new protocol. There's a certain sense of urgency, and I've been setting a lot of doctors.
Sorry, you're saying something very important, and I'm making a joke, but not really. I mean, I'm just questioning you, but there is a certain urgency. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're getting doctors set up to do telemed visits and things like that so that people can still get health care without having to leave their home, get their prescriptions.
I like that. There's a lot of change happening.
Yeah, very rapidly.
Really good. Yeah.
So they're probably going, well, we know they're going to furlough us and probably do alternate weeks. So, it'll be, my income's going to take some kind of a hit. I don't know how much yet. So thinking about long-term strategies, what to do around that. Hopefully it'll open up some new opportunities for doing other things and,
Yes.
allow me to get some stuff done that I haven't been able to do, because of my work schedule.
Yes.
So on the positive side of that,
Yes.
that's, the possible benefits. It could, as you said, lead to a transformation
Totally.
of some sort. And
I
that's what
love
I'm
that.
looking forward to.
That's great, Brendan. Yeah, so I was talking with my friend earlier today, not talking with, we were texting, we were like messaging. So I was talking to her about prayer because I just think it's very important to talk about prayer right now and what ways different people pray. And she mentioned a great many ways, but then she mentioned she does dream work also, and she mentioned the figure of Kali, and then it just crashed down on me, of course. Well, and also Kali is in your email, Brendan.
Yeah, my old email address I used for years predominantly was Kali93.
Oh, that's why you weren't getting the invite. Well, that's who I sent it to. And so I'm reading her response all about the ways she prays and how she uses dream work and her what she says about Kali, and I had just sent you the invite. And I thought it was almost like, Eureka, Kali is afoot. So
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Kali.
Yeah, that's actually a subject that's near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
Of a lot of the many goddess archetypes that are out there, Kali is a primordial one, and to me, like, reflects a lot of other more modern goddess forms that may have evolved. My hunch is, and from what I know about the origins of Kali, is that she's even much older than the Vedas. So she probably was pre-existing the time that the Aryans came into India. She is still the dominant goddess in southern parts of India and like Tamil, and areas where it's more Dravidian culture. And I think she was integrated into the Vedic pantheon, and the idea that she's the consort of Shiva,
Yes.
is a big part of that. There are goddess forms in Northern European um, culture that are similar. They refer to, in the Irish pantheon, the goddess, the Morrigan, has sometimes been referred to as the Celtic Kali.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah,
I've
and
never heard
I'm
of
a
Morgaine of the
yeah,
fairies.
Morgan Le Fay
Yes,
may or may not be derived from
that's
stories about
interesting.
her.
I have to think about that. I could kind of see that.
Yeah, that the animals associated with her are usually, and this is true of Kali as well, are wolves and ravens.
Nice.
Um, Spears are usually associated as well as a weapon.
Okay.
Um, in India, Kali is usually wielding something like a scythe, and she's often depicted wearing a necklace of heads or skulls.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
And another way she's often depicted is in sort of more of a tantric way of having coupling with Shiva's, prone body, and it's questionable whether or not he's dead or alive, and
Oh.
or like dancing on his dead body. And there's this weird mixture of
He's badass.
yeah, she's total badass. The whole
Well,
idea of,
and looking at the state of the world right now, Brendan, it's like so much fear and terror, and and sadness too, and grief. And and what is she? She's about destruction,
Yeah, well, she's both creation and destruction. That's the
creation,
interesting
and
thing. So, I mean, they're flip sides of the same coin.
yeah, totally.
In the Vedic traditions, they measure time cycles in tens of thousands of years, and I'm not exactly sure of the number of years a yuga lasts, but I want to say it's like
Okay,
12,000 years. So they have like
okay,
cycles of time that are based on astrological concepts in terms of where the precession of the equinoxes
okay.
is. So I think a full cycle astrologically, a precession of the equinox is roughly 12,000 some odd years. I could be totally wrong on that number, so please don't hold me to that.
Okay.
But each yuga, which is an age,
Great, the Kali
is
Yuga.
we are in
Oh,
the
here's
Kali
Puma.
Yuga right now.
You see Puma right behind me.
Black kitty. So yeah, I mean, it's very apropos to think about Kali in that regard as well. In order for there to be creation, what has been before needs to be laid low and leveled.
Yeah,
I think Kali speaks a lot to the idea of ego death as well.
yes.
When she decapitates Shiva, that is, some people interpret that as, transformation through ego death. You're cutting someone off at the head, so all of this stuff that goes on here is gone, and
Yes.
it's revealed to be sort of an illusion.
Yes.
We in our culture are extremely dependent on our intellects and our egos to navigate the world, and I think we're being instructed, if you would, to maybe shift more towards centering our awareness to our hearts rather than up here, coming more down into our body and our hearts.
Yes. Yeah, I think you are right about that. There's a lot of change. People are having to totally reprioritize, or one hopes that people are using this opportunity to reprioritize. So I used to think, going to work was, that was my work, most of my work in the world, and that was where I, whatever. So the ego, and come on, Puma. And now they're home with their families. People have to get to know each other again. That's pretty cool. I know that people say there's a lot of, what do they call it? Corona babies and divorces.
Yeah, I work with a bunch of OBGYN doctors, and one of them keeps saying, yeah, to look 9 months from now, we're going to have a whole crop because you can only watch so much Netflix.
Exactly. That's great. Well, what has your dream life been like lately?
Yeah, it's been relatively dead. That's the weird thing. And I think it might be a result of me being so fatigued that when I'm sleeping, I don't know if I'm really getting into that REM state so much. I was talking about this a little with my partner this morning, and she said that it was cool with her to share a dream that she's had.
Awesome. A Christian dream.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my partner, Kristen, is blessed in that she gets to work from home already, or has been doing so for a while, and she teaches children in China how to speak English over the internet. So she works really weird hours. The thing behind me is actually one of the backdrops that she uses for one of her jobs doing this. So, ignore that. We're not trying to advertise anybody, but this is who, one of the groups that she works for.
They should give me, whatever, the commission. So
they, interestingly, because of this, she's seen a lot of what was happening on the ground in China, and through direct communication with the kids who have had to go through this lockdown period and not be able to see their friends and not play with anybody.
Oh my goodness.
And knew, ahead of this, what it could potentially be like. So,
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow.
She even teaches some adults, and she had one adult student who was really visibly grief stricken to the point where she was concerned about his personal safety, whether or not he might do something to hurt himself.
Oh, really?
Because this was a normal late 20-something-year-old guy, who was used to going out to bars and restaurants and
Yes.
doing all that stuff with his friends, and now all of a sudden he was locked in his tiny little Shanghai apartment or wherever, and couldn't go anywhere, couldn't see anybody. People were, they took very drastic measures there.
Yes.
We on the streets here don't really know what kind of measures they took in China because it's not really reflected in the news.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
information doesn't really get out. So they took extreme measures more so than we have. That's
Right.
about all I can say to that.
Mm. You
And
mean just everyone wore face masks and they did crazy testing and then they
they locked everyone down.
figured
You couldn't
out
be on the street
whoever,
without getting arrested.
right.
You could be arrested, and they have this whole social credit system, which is something that if you even get like a traffic ticket, it's a ding on your social credit score,
Oh,
which affects
really?
your future ability to get jobs, to get financing for homes or
Oh my
businesses.
gosh, that's a concept unknown to Americans.
Yeah, it is. And it's, it affects every aspect of life for people in China in
Right.
ways that we don't know and understand.
So, yes. And just to say, his partner also is the mom of a 5-year-old and no, they must
Yeah, she has a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, a boy and a
wow.
girl.
Yes, yes.
And they're very active. So, we're in a relatively small apartment. So she's been taking them out for hikes and stuff during the day, which is great for everybody. And I got to go with them yesterday and climbed up a drumlin rather, and got some exercise for a change.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, so her dream is kind of interesting, and she's been involved with a local singing group called the Resisterhood,
Oh,
which
is she in
is
the Resisterhood?
yeah,
Great.
and that's like a woman's choir that has been essentially focusing their energies on resistance to the more patriarchal Trump world that we live in. They've been learning like protest songs and things like that, and songs that are uplifting
Yes.
spirit. And in her dream, it was during coronavirus, and they were still having some sort of a meeting of the Resisterhood, and everybody was maintaining social distancing. But at some point in the dream, an older woman who was not specifically anybody that she knew, but just some like generic older woman archetype, grandmotherly type figure, came up to her and embraced her and hugged her. And Kristen's reaction in the dream was like, whoa, wait, we're really not supposed to be doing this right now. But
Oh.
she felt the woman's need for contact and
Oh.
all of that so strongly that she's like, well, let me go ahead and just do this.
Yeah.
And, and she, fell into the embrace. And I think it was like a mutual comforting thing going on by the sounds of what she said.
Mm. That's really beautiful. That's so how did she feel when she woke up from that dream?
Um, I don't know. I think she was a little puzzled by it and she was
Okay.
processing it.
So she's also doing her dream work. That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, so okay, let's look at a reality check. So so what is so okay, she's in the Resisterhood. They're having a meeting. Were there any specific songs that they were working on during that meeting?
She didn't mention. I would have to ask her. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, like what when she thinks of the Resisterhood, what are the, first songs that come into her mind?
I know there's one, and I don't know the name of it, but it is about rising up and coming together.
Mm.
Essentially, that's what I remember of the core of the song.
Yes.
Which I think is a big theme for all of us now, more so than ever.
Yes. Yeah. So does she know this older woman? Is it someone she knows?
It's not a real person.
Oh,
It
it's
was
not someone
apparently an
she knows.
archetype. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
she said basically some generic older woman archetype figure.
Yes.
So, I mean,
And
my
so
thoughts on that were that, it's like a grandmother figure or, a mother goddess figure, maybe even.
Yes. Yes.
Thinking about it, now I'm realizing that she's had a lot of concern for her own mother in all of this because her mother is living in Manhattan.
Okay.
Who's in her 70s and lives alone.
Yes.
She's very active. Totally could probably kick my ass, like in terms of like speed walking contests or anything like that.
Right.
And she's very independent, and she's been very resistant to the idea of staying home.
Okay.
So, we've been concerned that she's still going out and shopping.
Oh, okay.
And stuff
That's
like
kind
that.
of the attitude this woman has too, in a way.
Yeah, a little emboldened and, just throwing caution to the wind and saying, screw it, I'm going to hug you,
Yeah, but I'm going to interpret it. If it were my dream, I want to interpret it that that old woman is like an ancestor of mine.
What, an ancestor?
An ancestor. And she hugs me, and I'm afraid, and I don't know if I want to, but then I fall into the embrace, and I feel like she's coming from the other side to say, you're good. I'm here with you. Someone in her maternal lineage. So that's what I'm wanting.
Yeah, I'll offer that to her. That's an interesting concept.
Yeah, right. Because that's all we need, right? A little hug from the universe to say it's okay. There's been, every it hasn't been in a little while. America's in this big dream, right? Of like, they say the American dream, but we're like delusion dream, like, and but many eras have a catastrophe, have a pandemic or a war,
Yeah, we in the U.S. are very blessed in that we have never experienced an actual war on our home ground.
Yes.
Not since the Civil War, at least, and maybe you could say that some of the Mexican war with Mexico and Spanish-American War to a degree, but we didn't really have anything on our home front.
I don't think Texas was a part of the U.S. yet.
Yeah. I'd like to quote, I forget who it was. There's a famous Mexican-American comedian who likes to say, "We didn't cross your border crossed us."
I like it.
Yeah.
So true.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, the ancestor piece is interesting. I've been thinking a lot about my own mother, who passed a few years ago.
I remember.
And thinking on one end of it that it is a blessing that she has not had to live through this, and it would have probably very likely killed her.
Yes.
Being that it's running rampant now through the nursing homes.
Okay.
And I'm also thinking she was a nurse as well.
Yes.
So there's that part of it that I've been thinking about her a lot. And I know if she were alive that she would want to be, on the front helping people.
She would have heeded the call.
Yeah.
These healthcare workers have a calling. They're really heroic.
Yeah, I work with, nurses all day. So, I see their dedication, and see like how
Mm.
seriously they're taking this, and their concern
I'm
for
so grateful.
the community at large.
Hmm. Hmm. So my dream life has been, my dream last night made me laugh because I mean, I dreamed many dreams throughout the night, but this last one that I woke up with, I was in the kitchen. I don't know, kind of know what kitchen. Let me think for a second. Oh, I think it was the kitchen that I grew up in. And I was with two women and we went in there and I said, and we were all having cocktails, but I said to one of the women, she was asking, do you want anything? And I said, I'd really like a cup of coffee. And she was a little surprised. And then the other woman, and I was like, oh, and I'm hungry. Everyone was, and then so much time goes by and we're leaving that room. And I realized nobody made coffee. Nobody made any food. And I ended up saying to these people, well, you are not Stacy.
You're not what?
Stacy.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Stacy was like the best housemate I've ever had.
Yeah,
Sorry,
she
brother.
was. No, she
And
was
you
like
were
a
a
white
great
tornado.
housemate too. You know why? Because you used to bring me coffee, right? In the morning. Those
Yeah,
were
because
the
I need
best
it. I'm
days.
like an addict. Although lately I've
Yeah.
been switching away from coffee,
Oh,
like, and
really?
doing more black tea and green tea,
Yeah.
because my nervous system, I think, is
Oh,
really has a hard time with being so jacked up first thing in the morning,
yes,
and it ends up triggering anxiety.
yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
so I've been a lot more judicious about my use of
Caffeine. Are you
caffeine in that
are
way.
you drinking black tea or green tea? Did you say?
Yeah, black tea, like English black tea.
Yeah, I love to switch it up a little every now and again, but obviously not last night.
Yeah,
Last night I wanted coffee, and
this is
nobody made coffee. And it's not like, I mean, I didn't either. It wasn't like
mhm.
I did either, but none of the three of us did anything. And then we were passing through the room. It's like we were in that room for a long time. And so, right, I mean, if I look at it kind of globally, we're in this room for a long time. So, what do we need to do? We need to nourish ourselves. We actually need to take the time to nourish ourselves, to cook the food, to um, take care of my health. I want to stay healthy, and the coffee, and feed your spirit.
Yeah.
Feed your
I think
body
of
and feed your spirit.
tend to think of coffee almost as entertainment.
Okay.
Because the complex flavor palette that coffee has, as well as the stimulating part of it, it's like,
You taught me so much about coffee when you
yeah,
lived
I'm a
here.
coffee snob. I admit it. We got some good, I think, Nicaraguan whole beans from this delivery service called Field Goods, which unfortunately now is shut down for the time being. But yeah, and we grind it fresh, and it's
Oh, I love it.
huge difference, like from what I drink at work or whatever. It's
Right.
got
I
the
thought you didn't
chocolatey,
like
velvety stuff going
I
on.
thought you didn't like the Indonesian coffee, right? I love the Sumatran, but I thought you thought it was like acidic.
Yeah,
But I
it's
do
got
like
that
the
fruity
Arabic.
profile. Yeah, the Arabic beans tend to be more have like a fruit acid taste profile.
Okay.
That does not appeal to me as much. A lot of people really like it. I,
Okay.
I tend to go for like very rich dark roasts
Yes. Yes.
and espresso and
Yes.
whatnot. But we have a coffee press, which works well for
Nice.
me.
Nice.
Stainless steel.
Wow. Very nice. Well, like you mean like a French press?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. I have Stacy's French press. She left it at my
Ah,
house. So I'm
that
like,
was nice
okay.
of her.
What's that?
That was nice of her.
It was so nice of her. I have a French press and it's like stainless. It's supposed to keep it really hot, but it's old now. It's all screwed up,
Uh,
you know.
yeah, but I wanted to speak to some bits of your dream as you were talking
Yes,
about it.
please, please.
Um, for me, if it were my dream, the kitchen is kind of like the center of the home. It's, when I was growing up, we had an eat-in kitchen, and I don't know if you had a similar experience, but, family dinners were, often around the kitchen
Mm-hmm.
table.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, kind of like, what would have been like the hearth in the old days. People used to cook on the hearths. Now they cook on the kitchen stove.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, to me, like the heart of the home, because like you said, it's where we get all our nourishment.
Yes.
It's where we're able to connect with our family. And although the people in your dream were not family per se, I
Right.
don't know, were they people that you know in real life?
No, they were just, I mean, it almost seemed like people I would have known in like summer camp,
Huh. And what,
which I only
tell me
went
about the
to.
summer camp.
I only went to it for 3 years. So summer camp, I loved it. First I went to Camp Sequoia, you know, and that was awesome. And then I think I went to Sequoia for 2 years, and then I went to Camp Danby, which had a reputation of having like wall-to-wall carpet in the bunks, but it didn't.
That's weird.
I think it was like not
Sound dampening.
not thought so well. But but I loved it. I loved camp. I loved camp. One thing I'm remembering really strongly is when I was at Camp Danby, we and my very good friend Julie also went. And we were in the same bunk. We dressed up and we had like a contest. All the bunks had to create something, and we picked like America. So I stood there as the Statue of Liberty with the torch, and I had a robe, and I remember Julie was Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross.
Sewing
Dude,
the flag, and I just remember that really strongly. So there you go. I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
that's interesting. So what, did you keep any connections from summer camp like throughout later in life? And
Oh yeah. So Julie is someone I met when we were 5. We were in the
wow.
same kindergarten, and I don't really remember this, but she remembers it that I went up to her and said, "Do you want to play?" And that was the beginning. And then she moved to Boston a little bit later, I think 5th grade. But she and I were Facebook friends. We still keep in touch. So yeah, she's still in my life.
So did either of the figures in your dream remind you of her, or were they just kind of like,
I think so, actually. Some aspects of her. Yeah, I think
mm.
so, actually.
So one of the things that popped out for me is that the number 3 is there with 3 people, you being one of them,
Yes.
um, and 3 being like a primal number associated with goddesses. And in some mythologies, like you have like the Norns in Norse mythology, which are the 3 fates that spin
Oh,
the lives of men.
wow.
The number 3 pops up in a lot of different
Yes.
things. A lot
Yes.
of goddesses are triple aspect.
Yes.
So I kind of interestingly almost see that as like you are one of the 3 goddesses of hearth and home in this vision.
Oh, love that.
And there's this idea of like nourishing each other, but somehow nobody's made the food or the coffee.
Right.
And it's, kind of like what's going on here with that. That's kind of unusual. Like you're in central place and none of the stuff that normally would be done or needs to be done is getting done. So I'm wondering about that, what that means. Maybe there's like a sense of lack going on in there.
Mm.
Coffee is such a social thing too. Like it really, like people get together around coffee and have
Yes.
stimulating conversation.
Stimulating is the word.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I know, but this part of the dream was odd, was that we were drinking cocktails, and then I said, "Oh, I'd really like to make a pot of coffee,"
Yeah, and so
So
and they were surprised at that. That was
and
interesting.
nobody ended up making it because it was, I guess, not important to anyone else to have coffee. And so I don't know. I mean, what is that? Like cocktails would be like kind of
Yeah,
hanging
people kick
out,
back, I guess,
kick back.
relaxation,
Yeah.
a lot of people, alcohol consumption, I think, has
Uh,
gone way up during all of this,
I'm
just
keeping
based on,
I'm keeping bottles of wine here on my desk. I have
yeah,
happy hour every day with, well, not every day, but often with a group of friends who drink whatever. But so I'm in my sound studio. I just keep my wine here in a cup.
yeah, we've stocked up on a few bottles of wine to have,
Yes.
around, and bought some alcohol for making tinctures and whatnot as well. Um, so we're making
Oh,
our own
awesome.
medicines that way. But yeah, it's been apparently, like, from what I understand from people around, that some of the liquor stores are getting tapped out on certain things, and
Wow.
they're doing good business, but yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, since you can't go to a bar, what do? You
Yeah.
have happy hour at home. I've seen people posting
Happy hour
virtual
on
happy
Zoom.
hours. Yeah, no, people are doing that actually.
I that's what I'm doing when I meet up with these women. So yeah, it's kind of a crazy time. Crazy
So
time.
you
So I'm
were
choosing
physically,
coffee.
yeah,
And so that's choosing to be more wakeful
hmm
during this time and not to be so lax or celebratory or like laid back, I think you said, right? Not to be so,
yeah,
but just to be more wakeful and alert, right?
yeah. I also find coffee to be comforting.
Yes.
Particularly, like, if somebody makes you a cup of coffee in the morning, it's like a good feeling, like,
I
oh,
know.
somebody made me this lovely thing. It's going to help me wake up and get my day started,
Uh-huh.
you know. So, and it can go the other way, like you can go into full, like, you know, anxiety mode because you're like overstimulated if you're
Right,
doing too much of it. But
right.
there's a balance,
Sure.
I guess, really, for with everything. But yeah, coffee though is one of those things that makes me think of home.
Yeah.
If it were my dream, coffee, I always relate to my grandmother.
Yes.
Um, she was one of those women who lived through the Depression and the Second World War, who always, always, always had a pot of coffee on the stove.
I love it.
I think, you know, she died as a result of her smoking,
Okay.
but, she was literally like a coffee and cigarettes person
He also had
all the time.
probably painted nails.
She did manicure them, yeah, yeah, actually, and oddly, and she didn't even go out that often. But I think that was something that was important to her.
Yeah.
Even, like, always minimally had some kind of lipstick on. She didn't
Yes.
usually do like a full
Right.
makeup thing like some women did, but it was
Right.
still important for her to keep up appearances.
Absolutely. I
But
was
I,
talking about my great grandmother in the last episode or two and how she was from Russia and she used to put a sugar cube in her teeth and drink a swig of black coffee and it would, go through the sugar. And that's how she used to drink her coffee.
hmm, clever.
Yeah, that's from the old country.
Yeah, I think the thing about having the pot of coffee on the stove is kind of almost about being prepared,
Yeah.
and like being ready to host
Yes.
people at the drop of a hat,
Yes.
and be able to keep things moving in the household. There's like a certain amount of, like, okay, we're going to get through this, and I'll drink as many pots of coffee as I need to get everything done.
Right. Right. And that's where it becomes almost anxiety provoking, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Yeah.
too much caffeine. But she was, they were people from that generation. I think were very much do or die,
Right.
and they lived through austerity during the Second World War with rationing.
Yes.
A lot of her other behavior reflected that.
Right.
Almost borderline on hoarding.
Yes.
She would never go to a restaurant without ending up coming home with little pats of butter in her purse and things like that,
My
or
sister was making
jelly
fun of me.
containers.
I was doing that in Atlantic City. They had like little jellies and a little, they just had cute things. And my sister gave me a hard time and said, "You're like an old lady."
Yeah.
Teach me a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Yes, I can relate.
Yeah, and from her perspective, I know it was because, like, at one point they actually did ration butter, and you
Absolutely.
couldn't get butter. They had to use chicken fat to spread on their toast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. And once you do that, you'll take
Yeah.
from anywhere.
And oh yeah, don't care where the butter comes from. If it's butter, it's
That's funny.
better
So,
than chicken fat.
how then I'd like to end working on a dream, unless you have anything else to say about it.
Just in general, I have to say my dream life has been sparse, but one image that kept coming back to me was an image of a hearth, like a big fireplace.
Yes. Okay.
Get dream fragments of things like that, just sitting in front of a big roaring fire
And that's what's called
in a
for right
fireplace.
now.
Yeah.
Staying in place.
Yeah, looking forward
Finding,
to the time when we can all
finding
gather around
the light. I
fires again.
know you're very social compared to me. You're a real social guy. Are you having trouble? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm definitely a little depressed. I've been less social than I have for quite a while in general, mostly because of my work schedule and whatnot.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's tough. I miss seeing people out in public and going public places and
Yes.
feeling very isolated and trying to figure out ways to combat that. One thing I recently, a friend of mine has decided to host an online Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, it's nice to be able to connect with him and his
Yes.
partner, who are people I've wanted to get to know better.
Yes.
In this virtual hangout sort of thing, and we get to chat. So that's something, and I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons since I was probably in my late teens, early 20s.
I love it.
So like 30 years of a gap there, but it's amazing how much of this stuff comes back. And
Wow, I love it.
the creative part of it is really lovely because you get to create your character in this world. And it's co-creative because, you're being given guidance by the person running the game in terms of what the world is like, the culture is like, and who your character is in the world, in the place, and how he relates to the other members of the party that he's in.
Yes.
So it's
I love that.
been a great creative outlet, and I'm really enjoying that so far.
Do you know Lee Storage?
Not personally. I know Lee peripherally.
He used to be my home health aide, and he was really into Dungeons and Dragons and used to play it with a bunch of his friends, and they had like an old version. He talks about it in episode 6 and or 8 in the
All right.
Stream
I'll have
podcast.
to go back and look at the archives.
Yeah, those are the archives. Those are he was talking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that got spoken about within that other conversation, within the larger conversation.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings is a gateway drug for a lot of us.
Yeah, you guys are special. You're special breed, Renaissance fair goers.
Yeah, and I think that there's some interesting messages that come out of Lord of the Rings, and that are poignant to this time. I have a T-shirt, or not a T-shirt, a hoodie that has the quote from Gandalf about all we can do with the time that is given to us is choose how to. And I'm paraphrasing, but is all we have to do is to choose what to do with the time that is given to us.
Yes.
And that's particularly apropos right now.
Right. We're of the
we can't choose what the world we are living in is like, but we do have the choice on how to live our lives in it.
That's exactly what I feel about lucid dreaming. It's that I feel in a lucid dream, I'm not choosing the setting, but I'm choosing how to respond. So, for instance, I had a lucid dream and I was driving down the street, and I kept like crashing into cars, and the cops were behind me. I didn't consciously create that scenario, but then in that place, I decided to fly the car out of the canyon and go elsewhere. And so that's exactly how I feel about lucid dreaming, that we don't necessarily, it's our subconscious mind, it's like the unconscious maybe of our world is creating, well, I don't even know if it's coming from unconsciousness. I think Earth was finally like, I'm done.
You guys need to straighten your act up.
You people suck. Look what you're doing to the animals, to the clean air, to the not so clean air now, to the water. You are booted. Like, finally you'll stay in when your own species is at risk.
You're fired.
You're fired. You're done.
Yeah, I mean, there's been lots of stuff on the Facebook pages about, environmental impact of the slowdown, and
yes,
some of it I know is apocryphal, maybe not actually accurate, but from what I understand, that when China slowed down, there was an impact on the air quality.
Yeah, I know. The other
because
thing is,
the pollution there was horrible to begin with.
Yes.
So
Also, wild animals are coming into towns because the people are not going out. So in Boulder, I spoke about this in the last pod. I read the mountain lions are coming down, from the mountains. Cool. And I've read other instances. And then they said there's dolphins in Venice.
Yeah, that one I heard was actually not true.
But, yeah, I was thinking that wasn't true, but it was a lovely story.
Really, yeah. Yeah. We have had dolphins coming up the Hudson River, though, in the recent years because of the cleanup of the Hudson.
Wasn't there a pink dolphin that came up the Hudson? It's just lovely.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'll look that one up.
I'll send you the link.
That would be an albino, right?
I don't know, because I don't remember its eyes being red. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just might be an anomaly.
Yeah. Well, special animals, white animals in particular, are usually associated with the other world.
Absolutely. White buffalo.
Yep.
Yeah. Right before my mom died, and I was back in New Jersey at the house I grew up in, and I would walk my dog. I had my dog Redwood at the time, and we'd walk to the power lines, down the block, and there was a white doe.
Ooh, wild.
Just beautiful. And she had spotted fawns. They were like white and brown, spotted. Like you could tell which were her babies. It was very special. And then, shortly thereafter, my mom crossed over.
Yeah. Yeah, that I would see as a message from the other side.
Mm-hmm. I do. Yeah. So,
but definitely true. The animals have been emboldened. We were on the rail trail last weekend, and we had a group of deer get really close to us, and were not spooked by us at all. They just kind of like hung out while we walked by. Didn't really pay much mind to us at all.
That's really wild. So, with the dream that I dreamed, I want to find a way to honor it. So Robert Moss advises that we first write like a bumper sticker just to remember. So maybe mine would be like, the kitchen will nourish you, but you have to cook. No.
How about make your own damn coffee?
Okay, how about that? This is called make your own damn coffee. And then how can I honor this dream? Well, I kind of did already. This morning I made a pot of coffee. You were talking about drinking more tea, and I had been drinking tea. I think just yesterday. I was like, yeah, I'll just do tea now. But I really wanted coffee, and I made a pot of coffee. I'm drinking my coffee.
Quite the mug.
My big travel mug. See, we can't travel. I have
Yeah.
traveled downstairs with it.
Traveling in space and time in your dreamland.
Yeah. Well, blessings to you, Brendan. So I'm gonna sign off. And do you have any last wisdom to share with us, our listeners?
Ooh, wisdom. That's giving me a lot of credit.
Yes.
You know, to those of you who are listening, um, you, like the rest of us, are all going through a very trying time. There's collective trauma going on as a result of this. Just, do your best to honor that, allow yourself to grieve, go through it. This is a dark time for all of us. We're all going to go through this tunnel, and hopefully we can all emerge on the other side better for it, you know. And remember what it feels like to have the connections that you have. And, once we're through all of this, let's extend our hearts and, our hands, to remember what it is to be in community, even on the local level and on the global level.
Amen. Brendan, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to say to our listeners, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed. And until we meet again,
Ciao.
I have to figure out. Oh, here we go. End meeting. Okay. End meeting.